So here we go, tying Patches. Patches O'Houlihan. Patches O'Houlihan, it's from the movie Dodgeball. I named this fly that just randomly one day on the river after fishing it and watching this fly just, and it was just one of those things off the cuff, and boom, it stuck. It dodges, dips, dives, and ducks and dodges, something like that. Duck, dick, dive, dodge, and duck. Anyways, Patches O'Houlihan, tie these kits. Everything you need to tie patches comes in these kits. This kit is high quality. It's got 3 of our Appalachian bucktails, 3 different colors. It's got a cool decal you can pull off on top here. Really cool design. Love how that turned out. And then you can scan the QR code to take you to this video to how to tie. Now everything you need to tie patches is in this kit. You can tie about 8 of those because that is how many hooks come in the pack. We're rocking the A-Rex. Now I've done an old video on how to tie patches. We've changed some things up, some new materials within that. First and foremost would be the hook. We're using the A-Rex, the Light Predator. This is a thin gauge hook. They penetrate super well. They're sticky sharp. They stay pinned. On the previous video, the way I used to tie patches is with the Gamakatsu B10S. Still a great hook, still love those. But as I improved this pattern, we went with these. Now you can tie them in a barb or barbless. If you're feeling real froggy, go barbless. Next thing new about this pattern is the new shanks. We're using the MFC Big Game shanks. We used to tie these on the Blaine Chocolate Big Game shanks, but they discontinued those. So thankfully, MFC, thank you guys for coming out with these shanks. We're tying a 45 mil and a 35 mil. Next new thing is the Supersonic Soft Sonic Disc. Sorry, I said that wrong. Soft Sonic Disc as our prop material instead of the old body tubing. This stuff sucks to work with. It works good, it creates a good profile, but it's a pain in the ass to work with. So we got a new solution there as well. So we still got the bucktail, we still got the flat wing capes, best capes you can get, and the bleach. And then we've got our 2 flashes. We've got the copper flash to start out the back, and then we've got the dyed pearl orange Flashaboo up top. Sorry, we have our new line of bucktails, the Appalachian bucktails we are processing in our fly shop. We've got a few thousand tails we're working through, and we're super excited to launch those as well. And then last but not least, you get the GSP thread in that kit. So I've got my fancy new hairline bobbin here. I'm a big fan of it. If you have not tied on one, you should check them out. Rocking the Renzetti nowadays. I love the shank jaws. I actually custom powder coated this one, and something we're going to be doing very soon. So check it out. We're going to go ahead and throw a nice thread base down. So we're here in the timber cabin, tying this pattern. A little backstory on the timber cabin before I get rocking and rolling here. The timber cabin, I helped build this back when I did construction full time. My uncle's property here, we built it for a hunting cabin. My dad and a good friend of ours, we all went together. It was my idea. I took on a huge undertaking building this. Thankfully, they helped me finish it all. And it turned out awesome. Every single board was a tree standing here. We used an Alaskan chainsaw mill and milled the lumber. We cut all the post joinery right here. It's all old school mortise and tenon joints. And we built this thing in about 3 years. It took a long time to build, but it's an awesome place to hunt, awesome place to come here and tie flies. Originally it was our hunting cabin, and today is the last day of our gun season, and I did hunt this morning with no luck. But it's only a couple minutes down the road to some of my favorite musky water. So I've kind of turned this into my musky haven as well. And so it's awesome to sit here and tie flies in this place. I absolutely love it. I love being here. So in this pattern, we've got 3 bucktails. This is an older tail. The ones I just dyed are still drying out, but this is like our sucker brown. It's kind of like a gingery chestnut brown. We've got the sucker peach, and then always we've got white here. So here we go. We're gonna do a nice little 1/8 inch stack right off the back. And we don't want to flare that out too much, as this is, we're trying to build a taper. We want this fly to swim correctly. We got to keep it kind of skinny in the back end of it so it'll swim right. We're just trying to give a spot for our hackle something to part ways. So choosing your hackle is very important. We're going to start out with a nice kind of webby hackle off the back. These capes are great for that. It's one reason I love the flat wing stuff. So we're going to stick with the old Bowen's method of hair feather flash. When I learned to tie musky flies, I lived by that motto. He has pioneered a lot of these flies for us. This is really just a reiteration of his fly. This is nothing new that I've came up with. I've just critiqued a few things to make it work a little bit more to our waters here in Appalachia of West Virginia. We have a lot of suckers as our bait fish, as our main bait for musky. So this is our good, just standard 12-inch, 13-inch sucker-esque pattern that we're mimicking or imitating here. And I like this fly, single hook, mid-body placed hook. I am a big advocate on that. If you've seen any of my tying stuff before, or the previous patches video, I talk a lot about that mid-body hook placement. And I'm a true believer in that. So we tied our feathers on, boom. We're gonna flare back right there on the stem. Lock that baby in. So I am all about tying a fly that is gonna be durable, because we're gonna glue every segment as we work forward. My OG Patches has 25 musky on it now. With the last one, the 25th being my PB, big old fish. And she's still running strong. I don't fish her as much as I used to, but she still looks good. She still swims great. And it's all about building these things to last. We're going to grab our copper. We're going to do a full length stack there, as long as our feathers. One thing that makes a good bucktail too, in my opinion, especially for this fly, and as we progress forward into this fly, is a good crinkle to your hair fibers. That crinkle actually appears to be more mass. You can tie a little bit sparser, but it looks like there's a lot of mass to that fly. Another thing we are going to look for as we tie this fly forward is, we started with some big webby feathers in the back. We're going to start to make those a little bit skinnier as we go forward. Long and skinny is what we're looking for now. So nothing super big and webby, just something else to kind of hang off the back and really start to give it that look, give it that tail look that we're looking for. Again, a 12-inch sucker is the majority of our bait fish, especially in our river systems here in West Virginia. I'm sure PA, Virginia, a lot of Appalachia, this is the same concept. You might not get the exact same effects up in the Midwest, but one key aspect to this fly, as I've tied dozens and dozens of these now, is to not make this thing too bulky. The key is to kind of keep this thing a little bit shorter fibers and a little bit more sparse. All right, so now we're going to add our last stack of flash, and that'll be the end of the copper. So adding another little stack of the copper, which really again makes the back end of this fly just shimmer nice. There we go. Let's go ahead and put some bone dry on the end there. Really finish this fly off nice, or this hook of the fly off nice. Let's go ahead and get the thread base on our 45 mil shank. Go ahead and capture where that shank comes back on top of itself. We're going to go ahead and capture that first. And now we're going to build a nice little thread bump right here. Oh, about an 1/8 inch from the eye of the hook. A little thread bump there, and thread right in the middle. Another about 1/8 to 1/4 inch thick stack. Get those guard hairs out of the way, and we're going to capture nice loose wraps. We don't want this thing to flare too awful much yet, as we're still trying to build the taper and overall shape of the fly. So we can do that by how tight we pull down to create the pressure that will allow those bucktails to flare out, right? So here we are wrapping back. We're going to help dam up right there in front. You can tie your feather in here. I personally like just to start our flash on this nice little stack of flash here, and I put the feather in the second stack on this one. So we're going with our dyed orange flash here, our dyed pearl orange flash. This is what really makes this fly, is this flash here. We're going to tie it in half, tie it on top of itself, back over itself, just like so. Manipulate that. You want that perfectly in half so we can pull that up and trim some of those back, if you will. So we've started our body. So now, here's the new thing with this new Patches 2.0, are the soft disc. The hole in the soft disc here is a little bit too small to go over that eye. So we're just going to slit it on both sides. Boom and boom. Whip finish. Boom, boom. And then we're going to glue and cut that off. Again, glue every segment as you progress forward. That's what's going to make this fly last you longer. So now we take our disc that we just cut and slide that right back on top. That glue is going to help set. The thread wraps underneath is thick. It's going to hold it in place nice. And then we're going to dam up just right there in front of it. So much faster, so much easier than that chocolate tubing. I mean, again, that's some good stuff. It really created a nice overall shape and functionality of the fly. But that was before these things existed. Now these are just a little bit easier for this progress. So I'm going to create a little thread bump right here in front of the orange disc. And we're going to do our stack of white. Mid body on this tail here, we're going to work our way down, and we're going to start to get a little bit thicker of a clump. Not too thick. You don't want to stack this stuff in there real heavy, guys. It's going to make this fly just way too thick and way too buoyant. This fly is sparse for a reason. It makes it easier to cast, makes it shed water faster, but it also allows it to sink in the water column well. We fish these on intermediate lines. Cortland Intermediate in particular, it's all you need. It's the best line out there, especially for this fly pattern, especially for our river systems. We can fish structure, we can fish on top of structure way better than any gear guy can actually put a bait, right? That's where the advantage I see the fly game, especially in our river systems, is fishing the structure, fishing the logs, and not getting snagged up. A lot of our rivers are pretty dang shallow. You're talking 4 or 5 feet on the regular into some deeper holes, 10, 15 feet, but an intermediate line, it's all you need, especially with this fly pattern. So there we go. Now we're going to tie in another feather. Now I like to tie these ones in a little bit wild. So they don't have to be perfect. I kind of like them to be a little bit wonky, a little bit kind of like tied high. So they kind of flip down a little bit more than straight off the back, if that makes sense. So see how that's kind of tied high and drapes over a little bit more? And it just gives the swim the kick a little bit different action having those in there like that. So go ahead and tie your stems back. So we got the hair, we got the feather. Now we're going to add some flash on top of this one, again with the orange. And again, we're just going to tie this in halfway. And then flare that back over top itself. So I like to tie this in where it's kind of more on top, a little bit to the sides of the fly itself. And we'll progress forward there. We're going to do the same thing, capture that off with a whip finish. Add our glue, add our disc. I've already slit this disc so I can push it right up on in place just like so, and get back to it with the thread so she's right in place how she needs to be. Now this is what really starts to make the overall shape and proportion of this fly. The taper of this fly is this stack here, as it's starts to become the heads, the shoulders of the fly. So we're going to get a nice kind of heavier stack, not too heavy. We're not going too heavy, but we're about a good 1/4 inch thick, about the thickness of a number 2 pencil, right? Clear your guard hairs, spin your bobbin, and we're going to stack this right like so. And this should really start to flare back as we're getting into some good bucktail, good position of the bucktails with the hollow fibers. Now one thing I really like about our bucktails in particular, especially for this pattern, is we like to pick out a really good crinkly tail. These tails have a nice crinkle fiber to them, and that crinkle allows you to tie them in a little bit more sparse, and it'll look like there's a lot more mass because that crinkle, that wave, really just creates a lot of body, if that makes sense to you. But we really like a crinkled bucktail here, right? That's the gold. That's what we're looking for. And all these kits will come with a quality crinkled dyed bucktail. We're going to whip finish on the eye. Starting to look nice, real nice. We're going to glue this, and then we're going to move into finishing the head of the fly. Alright, so I'm going to check the cameras once again, make sure nothing goofy is happening. I'll put my 35 shank on there. We'll go ahead and take a good look at just the taper, the overall shape. Starting to really take shape there, right? Put the 35 in. Now we're going to be packing some hair on this one for the head, so make sure your jaws are really on there tight this time. All right, guys, we're working on the head of the fly here now. 3 stacks again. We'll go ahead and get our thread base down. Thread base is down. We're going to create our bump in the back here. Create our valley. Suckers are a nice little brown. You know, this is kind of like that gingery brown. So it's got just a real nice natural kind of orangey hue to it. Flare that around. I like putting the brown as the first stack because that darker color really hides the segmentation of the 2 hooks there, or the 2 shanks in this case. And we're going to really start to flare that thing back now. One thing I really don't like about that body tubing is using that body tubing right next to the segment, the connection point of 2 shanks, because it's hard to flip that body tubing back over these, you know, the jaws. So that's where these discs really come into play to really help with that. So now this one, I want to keep this as far back because I want to give myself enough room to build a nice head on here. I don't want to crowd the eye. So there you go. I don't tie the prettiest flies. There's far better tires out there that tie beautiful, beautiful flies. Shout out to Dom at Streamer Kings, a very good buddy of mine. He ties some of the most beautiful flies, and he's very consistent with his patterns. I am not a consistent tire. You know, I tie, again, as a guide just to get the fly built, kind of to the ideas and specs that I'm looking to get out of it. But every coloration and stuff is a little bit different on my flies. I like just being more creative as I tie. Right there we go. Thread on. You should be in the right place if you're right there where the connection point of where that shank bends and comes back on itself. You should be right there on the front of that. Going with a nice big thicker stack of white here. This fly is designed to be tied with your mid AA bucktails. You don't need any of that 4, 5, 6 inch fibers. You know, 3-inch fiber is all you really need for this fly. And this is really starting to build the taper and head of the fly. So nice thicker stack on there. Manipulate that around. See, as I keep cranking down, that fiber keeps flaring backwards. That is what you're looking for here. And this is where we're going to add the last feather, last flash, before we start our head with the peach. Okay, so this is a very particular feather here. It's you got to find the right length. This is kind of like creating those pec fins. Got a little web to it. Bend it to be the exact placement you're wanting to put this. Again, this is creating the pec fin. Bend that with your fingernail. Lay that right in place just like so. Pull back the stems of that feather. Cut those out. I don't usually capture that many butt ends, but I did this time, so I cut them out. So we've got Hair, feather, and flash. Boom, boom. Just like so. All around. So this one I'm actually going to tie again on the sides, as you don't really see flash on a fish on the scales on the bottom of a fish, as the light's not really reflecting off the underbelly of a fish too much. I like tying that in on the top towards the sides, even on the last stack there. Overall head of the fly. Now the head of this fly is very important. It is definitely like your standard Buford. We're going to use the bottom end of that bucktail to start this, and we're going to actually stack this twice. We're going to do a top and a bottom stack here rather than kind of spinning it or manipulating it around. So starting that head shape comes from right here, this stack. So depending on how much you allow out, we'll do a little bit more, is what the overall length of the head you create. That's pretty good. Use your rotary vise, spin that. Lay that in here the exact same way. Now we are going to manipulate that around just to match up where the top and bottom meet right there on the sides, and then we're going to give it a nice pull down, really get those to flare out. Again, smash. You know you've tied that in right if you've got just a nice dome front there, and we're going to flare that back. We're going to do just another nice little thread bump if we can right here. See how I pull down, and that's actually pulling the thread forward. That's creating me a nice little valley. So tying this head is where the B side of these bucktails come into real play here. A lot of people think the back side of these tails are garbage or not worth any good, but honestly they make the best heads. Here, clear the butt ends out. Again, we're going to go with 2 stacks, one on top, one on bottom. This is like a long, skinny shape to this entire fly. So keeping that in mind, the head should kind of match that. It's what's going to create the action of this fly to really swim. So we're going to pack this in here now. Just pushing. I like to actually push with the back side of this thing. Gives me a little bit more leverage. Being careful not to bend the shanks. I have bent shanks in the past. Okay, so I used right there the more gingery brown B side. I'm going to finish this off with the peach B side there. It's a little bit more gray tint to it. I just like the overall contrast, the change, not only in color but also feel of the bucktail itself. Just a little bit more gray is going to help just kind of bring that whole head shape together for me. Manipulate that around. Again, pack it back. Use your hair pusher. And we're just going to dam up right in front now. You want this to kind of like protrude or start to come forward there. That's going to give you the overall bulk and shape of the head. And you see as I'm kind of pulling this thread back towards the back of the fly, that's just kind of locking all that back in there against the head. I do 2 wet finishes, again pushing that back, and then I rock it again with 3 or 4. So we've got the overall shape of the head. Now we're going to spend some time trimming this, and that's one of the most important parts about about this fly is the time you spend trimming. Really any good fly, you know, your EP flies or dungeons or any of those flies, it really comes down to how you trim the heads. I like to use some bone dry right there on the front. Just really locks that exposed thread down. So here's where we're going to start trimming this, and I like to use one of the razors just to get the overall shape started. So you're going to come in here, be careful. A good sharp new blade is definitely nice on these. We're not taking this too much off, right? We're not creating a dungeon head. We're just trimming some of those tips off and starting the overall shape. And then we're going to come in here with our curved scissors, and we're going to start really trimming and rounding this thing out. This is probably the single-handedly most important part of this fly. It's very easy to not trim enough or to trim too much. So I like to get an overall look of it on the vise, just like so, and then I take it off the vise. I brush it out again, the whole thing, brushing all the fibers out. And I'll hold this to finish up trimming the head on it. So we're going to round out the front of this a little bit more. There's an art in itself to trimming a fly. You can spend a lot of time right here. That is overall, that is Patches O'Houlihan. Nice sparse fly, one hook, two shanks, 12 to 13 inches overall length. Nice little sucker-esh pattern. So there we go. Hope you guys enjoyed. Hope you guys like the new tying kits. Hope you like the new Appalachian bucktails. We're excited to be doing some new things here out of West Virginia, and a lot of things to come, guys. We're excited to be a part of this industry. Not so excited to be a part of the Musky crowd, as we're all a little bit nuts, but that's what we have here in our backyard, and that's what we started chasing. And honestly, it's an obsession at this point, as if you're a Musky guy, you understand. But thank you for watching. There'll be a lot more tying videos coming, a lot more kits coming your way. If you want to see the old version of Patches with the body tubing, check the video here up above. And make sure you check out our apparel line with the design right here, Patches O'Houlihan, on our website. Thank you all. God bless.